Hey guys, so this is gonna be a pretty long one probably. I'm not just saying that to see if I say if it's a long one, if I'll make a short one or not. Although I would like to make this a short one. It's probably gonna be long because I'm me. So this is the Vulpo Cruiser. Yay! Specifically, it's the light Vulpo Cruiser, or the Vulpo Light, as I'm just calling it right now because I'm lazy. The heavy is basically the same thing, except not a lot different because I haven't finished making it yet. But I have finished this one. Its original intention was to make a cruiser of cruiseriness that can cruise around and be all cruisery and shit. The end result is a lot more expensive than I intended. Excuse me, which kind of puts it in an in-between area where it actually kind of sucks. Well, it doesn't. It's actually really great. I wouldn't be showing it to you if it wasn't really great, at least to an extent. We're going to map. We're going to tell it up. We already are going pretty far. Cruise in a nice straight line. Right now I have it in cruise mode where it consumes almost no fuel at all and does almost 6 meters per second. I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure the fortresses, the hovering magic fortresses will do about 5 meters per second. So it doesn't cruise much faster than the fortress, but its top speed in water is almost exactly 20 meters per second. And I have some automated control blocks that set its drive factor, which is currently at 10%. I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure it's 10%. Yep, it's 10%. So when it spots an enemy, that goes up to 100%, and it goes all the way up to its full 20 meter per second top speed. Its fuel consumption also nearly... It consumes almost 20 times as much fuel per second, which is the entire point of setting its throttle this extremely low. At the moment, it consumes less than 1 fuel every 100 seconds. That is just an obscene amount of... And considering... I can't do range calculations in my head. Basically, it doesn't have a lot of fuel on it. The idea, again, was that it was going to be an extremely cheap ship that was as combat effective as possible for a cheap ship. The idea was that this is a very early campaign game ship. This isn't supposed to be something that goes up against any faction other than the Deepwater Guard. And it's not even supposed to go up against the more dangerous Deepwater Guard ships. This is just for like the first few hours of your game. This was supposed to be like the first ship you build and the only ship you need for a while. And then maybe you need 2 or 3 of them to go up against the more dangerous Deepwater Guard ships. That was the intent. The result is it's quite a lot more expensive than I intended at over 160,000 resource points. It's I think a paddle gun, which is an extremely dangerous ship in theory at least for new players that don't design their ships terribly well. Well, I mean even the paddle gun can be a very deadly ship if the AI gets into a good position with it, or it can be absolutely terrible if it doesn't, which it usually doesn't. But anyway, my point is a paddle gun, which is a pretty solid, very effective ship, is I think 260 something thousand. I could be completely off on that. I don't actually know, and I'd check right now, but I'd like this video not to be too long. But the point is that this ship is expensive enough that it needs to be able to reliably kill paddle guns to be worth that cost. The original idea was to make a ship that could go up against, early campaign ships, and that's all this was supposed to be, in very early campaign cruiser, and it very rapidly turned into, it's too expensive to be an early campaign cruiser, but because it doesn't have any shields at all, I'm not comfortable saying it's a very well optimized ship, because you really need shields to defend critical parts of the ship if you're expecting it to be a very effective ship. The good news is these 2 main turrets that I've designed and built are good enough that this ship... Well, I'll demonstrate. We're going to spawn in not 1 but 2 paddle guns and see what happens. 2 paddle guns, that's a significant amount of enemy firepower, and very well shielded ships. They did spawn pretty far away. This is going to be a bit more realistic simulation than if they spawn right on top of each other. And because of all the recoil from those 2 main guns, the ship does heal quite a bit. Quite a bit. Oh, and the barrels kind of clip through the hull. And usually it doesn't heal this much. It's just, I think my drive factor didn't set. I think the enemy ships are so far away. Yeah, the enemy ships are so far away that it didn't trip the detect enemy. The detect enemy goes out to only 5,000 meters. And I think I'm beyond 5,000 meters away at the moment. But because these main turrets have such... Oh, I need to move me out of the way before this turret shoots me in the back. Oh, the lag is incredible. I think I'm actually... Am I pushing the ship backwards? Yeah, I think with the drive factor just at 10%, I'm actually pushing the ship backwards. So we're going to... I'm also pretty sure I'm going to end up killing both of those. So we're going to set this. Activate on spawning only. So it doesn't activate again. And then we're going to test this one to force it to activate. Now we're going to be up at full engine power. So now we're going to get up to our full speed, which is going to get the full hydrodynamic effects on the hull, which should help level us out a little. Yep, and because we're at such long range, the paddle gun doesn't have a terribly accurate weapon system, so... While it's very dangerous at longer ranges, it's relatively useless at shorter ranges. And you'll notice up in the upper right corner, I do have my player character's control capabilities off. Wow, and this is not something I've ever seen this ship do before. I've never seen it nose up to this extent. That is interesting. Oh, and these missiles are some nice 2-kilometer low-speed cruise missiles, basically. So we're just gonna hang out in the water and watch with the floating camera. Yep. So there we go. Now that we've picked up speed, the hydrodynamics have taken over, and it's actually kind of nosing into the water a little bit. It'll be okay. This little, I guess I can talk about the guns as we're moving in to kill these paddle guns. This gun at the very front is an relatively cheap turret that's set up. It only has ammo feeders feeding directly into the firing piece, so it doesn't have any ammo racks that explode like crazy, which is the good news, which means you can use high explosive cannon shells without, you know, your turret exploding and going nuclear. Yay, we're within 2 kilometers now. You can tell because the missiles are firing. Oh, and these missiles are using the Javelin Lua code that, shit, I forgot everyone's names. This ship is using quite a few things I've copied from other people, and check the description for the names of all of those people. And I guess links to the forum threads where I borrowed it from. But basically that is using the Javelin Lua code, so it does fly at rather high altitudes and then drops down directly on top of them. It looks like an AI or something was destroyed on this back turret, which is a little unfortunate. I do have repair drones on the ship, though, so it should be repaired and get back up reasonably quickly. Or has something else happened, because everything stopped firing? Nope, the missiles are still going. I'm not sure why. Oh, no, some of my cannons are working. Some of the cannons are working, some of the cannons aren't working. I'm not sure why. We'll deal with that potential issue later. Actually, I'm a little disappointed. I guess because these air-bursting high explosive rounds are going to rip open the deck of the ship, which is something I haven't really planned for. It's a bit of an issue, but overall, I mean, we are fighting 2 paddle guns here. So these are 2 paddle guns worth of firepower coming in on me. And it looks like that one paddle gun might be shooting the other one in the back a little, but that's beside the point. That's nothing the AI won't do in actual fights anyway. So in a nice 2-on-1 fight, my heavy armor-piercing cannon is now firing again. You'll note that that the paddle gun shields are all facing us, but because I'm firing rather high caliber, 100mm, very long, very heavy armor-piercing rounds at very high velocities with a very high rate of fire. I mean, these main turrets I'm using, for their size and expense, are actually really good. And as you'll notice, all of the armor I have on the ship, the one issue that I am noticing right now is, oh, and it looks like one of them was ammo racked, or I was ammo racked. There was a massive explosion somewhere. That's why the game time slows down like that whenever you get a large explosion. It goes into slow motion, so you can watch explosions in slow motion, and it has nothing to do with the fact that there are like 50,000 calculations going on. So a lot of the metal has been stripped off this turret. Again, the deck has been opened somewhat. So again, we are fighting. There, we knocked the AI out on one of the paddle guns, so we've destroyed. Nope, the AI is dead on both. So, the game doesn't update the fact that the AIs are dead very quickly, which means they are going to continue to shoot at me. But I just knocked out 2 paddle guns. Granted, my ship has taken some pretty incredible damage, but at the same time, none of the internals have been breached. The side of the hull hasn't been breached at all. Because of how paddle guns work, they basically fire... I mean, you can see the explosions. They basically fire their high explosive cannon shells above the top of your ship, and then they airburst, and that the area of effect damage ends up just ripping all the wood apart. So I think I'm going to replace the wooden deck with a metal deck, especially around these turrets to protect their the weapon controllers more. I'm pretty sure that was what knocked out and made both my turrets go dumb for a while. But as you'll notice, I just destroyed 2 paddle guns with this ship, and it's, for the most part, in one piece. The Buzzkill AA defense gun didn't fire at all because there's, well, I mean, it's not an aircraft, is it? But, oh, I love this ship so much, and I have a big and absolutely massive ammo rack in here, and it's right under this turret. It wasn't threatened at all this entire time. You will notice that these wood blocks above it. I should probably replace all this wood with steel. I really should. That's gonna slow the ship a little, make it sit a little deeper in the water, and it's already not particularly, high in the water, but I think I'm gonna have to do that, and maybe I'll take some steel off like the bottom of the hull or something somewhere where it's not important. But I do have an absolutely massive ammo rack right here. But basically most ships, and this is why I like my design philosophy better than most other people's, in most ships you'll end up with like a double layer metal hull around the entire thing, and then you might end up with one layer of metal around like your ammo rack or whatever where all your stuff inside might have one layer of metal around it. I do have just one layer of metal on the front and the back of the ammo rack. As you can see, this is why I was worried about the deck being ripped open here, because once the deck here is ripped open, plunging fire comes in, it goes right into the front of this ammo rack while I'm still closing on them. It goes through that one layer of steel, and then it detonates all my ammo, and I'm missing half of my ship just like that. So the ammo does stop. I do have... Oh, I don't anymore. Oh, that's metal beam. Ammo. I think I'm going to drop this. How many? 1, 2... Oh, yep. That's going to destroy that turret if the ammo rack goes. So I might want to remove the top layer of ammo. Or drop the ammo rack down one. But anyway, my point is, most ships would just have the ammo rack, one layer of metal around it, and then you have the 2 metal layer hull. I instead have 1, 2, and I'm 3, 4, and if you're coming from the top, you end up with 5, and if you come down diagonally, you have to go through 6 metal beams to get to the ammo rack from the sides. And the ship is supposed to rush in quickly and then go broadside and just sit broadside, so it's not supposed to be taking damage from the front anyway. That was just because we were closing from such an extreme range, which was sort of my mistake. Not that it was that much of a mistake. I mean, I did win that fight with just a reasonable... what I would consider a reasonable amount of damage. The turrets took quite a bit of damage, but they're both still functional, and I ripped up part of the deck. I mean, that was kind of it. So overall, I do really like this ship. It works. I mean, it really works, in my opinion. Although, again, it falls into that gray area where I tried to make it cheap, not use a lot of crystal, to be a nice early starting ship, but at over 300, almost 360 English, 360,000 resource points. It's too expensive to be considered just an early starting ship, but at the same time, it's not good enough to be considered a later ship, which is why I'm in the process of making the Vulpo Heavy, which is basically this exact ship with 2, basically turned into a trimaran with 2 hulls, an extra one on each side. That's about half the size of the actual ship. I'm going to be putting another one of these turrets, maybe. I think I'm going to take the missiles out. I'll split them in half in each of the pontoons on the side. I'll then build like a little tower in the center here where I'll make another of these turrets, except both of these turrets, all of their equipment's in the back. Instead of a lot of people will build their turrets vertically down in here, so you'll end up with like the turret, all of its components here, and then it extends up through the deck of the ship. That is a really great idea. That means your vulnerable turret block, that if this is destroyed, the entire turret is destroyed. That does put that deeper in the ship and more heavily armored. As it stands right here, it just has to punch through, a few layers of wood underneath the metal armor around the turret, and then through this one layer of metal, and then take the turret out. So that is a better idea. I just built it like this just to be quick and lazy. That also takes a lot of the mass of the turret and brings it lower in the hull, which lowers your ship's center of mass. So it's better in every way, basically, to build your ships like that. I mean, that's like the ideal building strategy, which is exactly what I didn't do. But I think I'm going to end up doing that, which will then also reduce the size of the turret up here on the upper hull. And then I can build another turret right here with all of its equipment down into the ship. Although I think I'm going to put a cram cannon here or something instead. But basically what I'm saying is I think I'm going to build a turret here that's raised enough so it's super firing over the top of these two turrets. And by taking most of this turret's stuff and putting it lower in the hull, that's going to drop the height of these turrets by 1. Which is going to mean it's not going to have to be as high. Or I'll leave these turrets exactly as they are and just have the super firing turret up here. And that will make the ship more unstable by raising its center of mass quite a bit, but then it's going to be more stable having the 2 pontoons. And that's also going to make it large enough. I think I'm going to be putting a decent-sized turbocharged engine to give me some very fuel-efficient power to run some shields. So I can also make this a proper late-game ship without making it too much more expensive. I think it's going to be half again as expensive, maybe straight up twice as expensive if I really go all out. But as it stands, it's a very good ship that is, well, I mean, it's a really good ship. I'm happy with it. It's, again, it's in a really weird position. It's in a really, really weird position. And I've jumped off into the water so I can hide because I'm going to be calling in a plural. Oh, actually, let's shoot down a Shrike. It can shoot down flying squirrels without being destroyed by them. It can basically go one-on-one with flying squirrels, which isn't actually that good because the flying squirrel is such a cheap plane. But basically, I want to show you my, well, not my, the turret up here. All of the turrets on this ship are all designed by me, with the sole exception of this one. This is the Buzzkill. It's one of the ball turrets designed by Ruger of Ireland Gaming, and I really like it. I have at least one on basically every ship I've built. I've even built small frigates that are solely designed for carrying like 2 or 3 of these. So putting 2 or 3 Buzzkills on a tiny little ship is actually a very effective strategy. And I spawn, so we're going to restart the designer. I want the Shrike to spawn a lot closer so I don't end up killing it with the big cannons that don't have enough. They don't have enough elevation to fire at most things. Most aircraft. English, you know, it really is a language. And my frame rate usually isn't always this bad, it's just when I'm recording. So the lower velocity aircraft, these missiles will go after because it is using the Javelin code. It does do a very good job of surrounding and destroying aircraft, although it could be better. Well, it could be a lot worse, and considering that wasn't the primary reason for the Javelin code anyway, I'm very happy with it. Pop. Get shit on. So it's really hard to see how good the Javelin, it's really hard to see how good the Buzzkill is at killing aircraft, and those missiles take care of it instead. But it's just one of those, I like having at least 2 weapons that can engage any target. This ship has absolutely... Oh, and you can see because the missiles are so slow, the faster missiles will actually overshoot and end up just looping around and basically just circling the aircraft, which is exactly what these have done. Never mind, they are a little too fast to reliably intercept slower airships. Well, actually, you don't need a fast missile to... you know what I mean. It's... Speed of the missiles can actually work against them, and they just end up orbiting the ship like those have. But, I mean... Considering they were designed to be anti-ship missiles, the fact that they actually do have some decent anti-aircraft capability is, again, a very nice side bonus. The Buzzkill was supposed to be the primary anti-aircraft weapon, which... it looks like I may have capsized the ship slightly. So, it's not perfect. Did I mention that it's not perfect? Because it's not. It tries, though. So let's see if it ends up right side up, I will be happy. If it ends up upside down, I will not be as happy. I don't actually know where its center of mass is. It's entirely possible it could go upside down and it could capsize, but it looks like my center of mass is placed well enough that it will end up right side up again. It takes a while. The front, because of how the Buzzkill is set up, it does have air gaps around it, which means this front area is considered to be flooded, which is nice. It's considered to be flooded until the Buzzkill is raised out of the water again, so it does lose quite a lot of buoyancy when it goes underwater, which means it does raise itself very slowly if you accidentally spawn it underwater. But when you're building a shipping campaign, that shouldn't be a problem. It should never spawn underwater. Yeah, I mean, I really like it. Overall, it's a really effective ship, and what I was originally going to spawn before I decided to spawn an aircraft and show you the Buzzkill, which I ended up not showing you the Buzzkill anyway, was a peripheral? this thing, the prolifer. So the paddle gun, wherever it is, paddle gun. I forgot where the paddle gun is. Here it is. So the paddle gun, it's a good ship. The prolifer is an incredible ship, and it's about 600 and something thousand resource points, and its block count is pretty high. I have no idea what the Vulpo's block count is. I haven't actually looked yet, and I forgot where it was already. There it is. So we're going to spawn one of them. We're going to start at relatively close range because we're going to start at very close range. But if we start at longer ranges, because of the high velocity, high accuracy nature of the two main cannons on this ship, and the buzzkill is finally firing at a ship. Oops. But because of the high velocity, high accuracy nature of my main cannons, this ship actually does do a lot better at closer ranges. I mean, longer ranges than it does at closer ranges. So the fact that we're starting at close range actually really hurts this ship's performance. At least relative to something like the Prolifer, which has a lot of very high damage, very low velocity cannons. The only advantage I have is that I will also start off broadside, which means they're going to have to go through a lot of steel to get to my ammo rack. The bad news is, because the Prolifer has such an incredible damage per second and has ridiculously lethal cannons, it almost has detonated my ammo rack already. And these missiles aren't going to help either. And the fact that my ship is now turning away to try and run is also pretty bad. The good news is, because of how I have my missiles set up, and because of how those high-velocity AP cannons are great at ripping apart steel, there's basically a 50% chance that I'm going to knock out its AI core before I actually end up losing. There we go, dead AI. So because of my frag missiles, the AP cannons opened up a huge hole in the side of the ship, and then the Lua-guided AP missiles, the Lua-guided frag missiles destroyed the AI, so it has ripped open the side of the ship to the point where it's opened the front of the hole, and it has opened the center section, so I only have the rear section providing buoyancy, which is nowhere near enough to stop me from sinking. So if it does do enough damage to put this ship below 80% health, which I think it actually did, the Vulpo will be considered sinking, and it will be lost. So the amount of damage that they did to my ship actually is enough that in campaign, I'm pretty sure it would be considered lost. I don't actually know how much health it has on all of its blocks, but because it lost... There we go. So it's only 1,400 block ship. That is not significant. And it has enough blocks alive that, yeah, it would not be considered lost, my Vulpo. Well, because I knocked the AI out, it did kill the Prolifer. So, while you might not think this ship is terribly effective, completely lacking shields, if I did have shields, especially if they were far enough away to detonate the HE rounds that just shredded the side of my ship, it would have been a lot more effective. I mean, I would not have taken anywhere near as much damage. They did do enough damage that they were this block, that's about half dead. Destroying that would have opened up the ammo rack and detonated the ammo rack and destroyed this top turret and ripped open half the front of the ship. So I was not that far from losing this ship. I didn't. It has enough health left over that it doesn't matter that it's sinking, that it would have survived. And now that it's starting to fix itself up, it has enough scrap... where are they? Somewhere in the ship. Right up here. It has enough supply crates, or enough spares crates. It has the 4 there. And has quite a few of them back here, somewhere, right here, beside my AI core. And it does have, I think, 4? Oh, and the fact that it's gotten close enough that my player character is now also healing it, so it's going to heal a lot faster than normal. But it does have enough spares that if it survives a battle, even with severe damage, it will be able to repair itself. That's part of the reason it's so expensive, and I think I'm going to end up removing most of that, the resource points. I think I can knock off around 80,000 resource points just by removing its repair ability. And using like a small repair fleet or something to repair it instead. But because of how heavily armored it is, and how survivable the hull especially is, it actually does make sense that it would have its own repair abilities. So it can repair itself while in combat, but at the same time it doesn't need as much repairability as it has. So I do like having that many spares on board. I also don't like wasting so much resources to put that many spares on board. So we're going to get my player character up here to finish repairing it so we can have it floating. And I think that's the end of this video. I don't want to show you it fighting anything more dangerous than the Prolifer. I have a hard time with English, okay? I know it's my first language, but I don't care. So after we repair it, we'll pull in a normal Atlas and an Atlas refit at the same time, and see how well it deals with airships. I haven't actually tested that, but these missiles are pretty much the only thing this ship isn't set up to deal with. It has nothing to engage submarines with, at least not effectively, and it has very little. It basically just relies on the buzzkill to engage faster aircraft. Aircraft that are over 40 meters per second in speed are going to be a little difficult for it to handle, but I don't think the Deepwater Guard has any of those, except for the Flying Squirrel, which the buzzkill is enough to take care of. So we're going to be turning my repairability off, so I don't repair it in the middle of combat, because I'd rather avoid doing that, because I want to see how good the ship is on its own. And we're going to call in an Atlas retrofit, which is much more dangerous, and an Atlas, just because I don't want it to just be a one-on-one. So they both have at least double the block count I do. And we're going to be throwing my guy overboard so he doesn't end up getting killed. That Atlas refit, though. Oh, the refit's the one that's going to end up dying first. That's going to make this a lot easier. But so these they're using the... Oh my god! So is that my ammo rack? I think that was my ammo rack that just exploded. Or that was just the shell. Did it rip the ammo rack open and detonate it? It didn't. It obviously didn't. That steel would be gone. So that was just the shell explosion on its own. And we have another one coming in. Oh, those... I didn't realize the Atlas refit was such a terrifying ship. It ripped open and destroyed some of my spares crates. Again, I think I am going to steel up the hull. I mean the deck. I don't think the deck should be wood. Oh boy. Oh boy. Thank God armor is so good against high explosive. And so we ran out of ammo on the buzzkill, but it is going to reload pretty quickly, and the AI on the refit is dead. And the normal Atlas doesn't have any ridiculous, terrifying cannons, so we should be fine. Pretty sure we won this. Yeah, that's a baby bullet, relatively speaking. And these missiles are just good. Although it did all of this one, it cut the missile in half, so that missile is now just wasting... It doesn't even have any guidance, it's now just wasting ammo by being fired, but whatever. So I forget what range I decided to set the ship to fight in. I think I set it to fight at like 800 meters. So it is going to be running away for a while still, but we've knocked enough balloons off. And the Atlas doesn't have enough firepower to get through my metal hull, so I'm pretty sure that we've already won this. It's just a matter of time, and that's the ammo. And most of the frags are just missing outright, but one of these days they're going to find the AI core. And, oh, it already found the AI core. So, we won. Yay! Those Lua missiles are lethal, man. Man. And I'm pretty sure the missiles have stopped tracking because I'm pretty sure they're set to just track on AI cores. And to focus on nothing else, to try and knock out the ship as quickly as possible. To minimize how much time they have to kill you. And it works. It works wonderfully. And then those AP cannons are ridiculous. They just shred things. Although they are relatively useless against wood. Well, I mean, wood is useless in stopping them, but wood's also cheap. So it's going to take a while to destroy every wood block on a ship. Although the AP is so high, it is just going to punch through it. So it doesn't really matter. So how much damage did we end up taking? We ended up, and the repair drones are already going to be repairing some of it. So our ammo rack wasn't in any serious danger of being pierced yet. Most of the damage, at least the visible damage, is just the metal on the turrets, which was enough to damage them heavily, but oh, it was enough to expose the ammo rack. So it is gonna get through my ammo rack pretty quickly. So the back turret was in danger of being destroyed. The front turret was also in danger of being destroyed, and I'm pretty sure I lost... Nope, there's the weapon controller right there. I think the weapon controller may have been repaired recently, though, by the repaired bots. Or maybe it wasn't, and they were just out of the arc of fire, so the turret stopped aiming at them. I don't actually know. But I mean, yeah, most of the damage I've taken was just the deck being ripped up. Which I'd like to make more difficult, to be honest, because it's a little embarrassing how quickly it'll get the entire deck ripped off. So I might replace the metal deck with a steel deck, although I don't know if I'm going to be able to get away with that, or if that's going to put me underwater. Although it has a decent bit of buoyancy left. Either way. My Vulpo cruiser, it's a Relatively expensive because it is made mostly of steel, which does end up making it pretty expensive, but it also has a very low block count. It's a less than 1,400 block count cruiser, which, without shields, with a 300 crystal, that's basically the repaired drones. But with... Yeah, I think I'm going to get rid of the repair drones outright and just have like a little levitating repair drone to follow it around or something. Which means I can take away the spare crew too, but I'll talk to you guys about that in the next video when I cheapen this up. Yeah, I can't really justify having the repair drones, considering that once this ship is damaged enough, it's basically dead anyway. As far as the fight is concerned, so it's not like it's going to get repaired mid-fight and then suddenly be able to win, so... It's a very effective ship that can take out ships much larger and much more expensive than it, but at the same time, it's not good enough, I'd call it, an endgame ship. Again, the idea was supposed to be a cheap ship that I could upgrade quickly to make it an endgame ship later in the game. Basically, a ship that I can use from the very beginning to the very end. The problem is it's not cheap enough for me to use it in the very beginning, and it's not good enough for me to use it at the very end. It's supposed to be an Omni ship that I can use as like the core primary ship of my fleet permanently, and it's not that. It's a great mid-game ship, basically. Although it could be a better mid-game ship, because by mid-game, a little bit of crystal and you have these powerful shields, and the engine's already powerful enough, I can stick some shields onto an extent. Wow. I'm really happy with it, and yet I'm not done. I'm happy enough with this design that the base design is relatively final. But it is going to need some modifications. And it's also a little nose heavy. So, this was a much longer video than I intended, but I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to be starting up a campaign relatively soon. I want to get a basic fighter bomber done that is good enough to destroy any of the Deepwater Guard's aircraft while being an acceptable bomber. And then I want to get a basic destroyer, cruiser, frigate-ish thing done. I'm not sure. I think I'm going to be a destroyer rather than a frigate. I don't think I want something light enough that I would consider it a frigate. Or I'm going to make something that is light enough to be a frigate, and we'll make a destroyer later. Or I'm going to start calling this the Vulpo destroyer instead of the Vulpo cruiser, and we'll make something larger to be a cruiser. Although I think this should be a light cruiser. It can kill a prolifer one-on-one. Alright, it could destroy incredibly dangerous ships one-on-one without being destroyed itself. I consider that... I mean, this is not a destroyer. It's... you can't kill battles... Well, you can't kill battleships and destroy with torpedoes, but it doesn't have torpedoes, so it's a cruiser. It has an AA gun, deal with it, alright? I understand that there are people that would consider this a frigate, it's so small, but you know what? Suck a wing. It's a cruiser, in my opinion. The fact that you build your ships too big is your own damn fault. So, I'll be seeing you guys next time. It's my Vulpo cruiser. I like it. It's effective. You're welcome, Fox. I named my best ship I've built to date after you. You're welcome. Oh, and I need to paint it at some point, but I'm lazy, so that'll be later. So, I'll see you guys later. I beat it this time.